Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming out to Flyleaf Books tonight. We are your local independent bookstore, and we so appreciate you coming. Your attendance and book purchases let us have these author events, so we appreciate it. Tonight, we have the honor of hearing from Jayne Anne Phillips presenting Small Town Girls with Jill McCorkle. Jayne Anne Phillips is the author of Machine Dreams, Fast Lanes, Night Watch, and many more. Her work has been a finalist once for the National Book Award and twice for the National Book Critics Circle Award. She lives in Boston and New York. And then we have Jill McCorkle, who has published 7 novels and 4 collections of short stories. 5 of her books have been named New York Times Notable Books, and 4 of her stories have appeared in Best American Short Stories. We hope you enjoy this event. Thank you, and remember that you can get a copy of Small Town Girls or another of Jayne or Jill's books up front after the reading. Okay, thank you. Over to y'all. That should be on, Jayne.
Wonderful. Thank you. A great turnout and for this wonderful book. All of Jayne Anne's regular readers are thrilled, and it also is a book I keep saying needs to be in every book club. There's something for everyone, but read them in order because they do have an arc, and there's beautiful repetition in the way they're put together.
And save the acknowledgments for last. Don't read ahead.
But you have history, you have childhood, strong focus on the women surrounding the area.
But also the men.
Also the men. And but also wonderful fragments just about writing. I found myself dog-earing little passages throughout. Silence is the writer's familiar. Just talking about that secret life and how there's always the writer's life going on. And I've already told Jayne Anne this, but the cover photo, I think, says it all. If you're looking at the book, she's front and center, but looking off in another direction, very much in thought. And I felt the whole time I was reading these wonderful pieces that she's both a participant, but also very much that writer eye and sensibility. So I think you should just maybe start with a short reading.
Yeah, I'm going to read a few paragraphs from several different pieces. And I'm going to start with Shop Talk. I'm not going to be reading the entire piece of any of the pieces, but just a little bit. Shop Talk. I have to remember to hold this up. Who first tells us what is beautiful? Definitions of beauty are handed down like stories and myths, absorbed as expressions of a specific time and place. In writing a particular novel, I found myself setting several scenes in a small town beauty shop, similar to one I remember from my own childhood. Beauty shops of that era predated use of the word salon, and there were definitely no male hairdressers. The shops were women-owned and women-operated sanctums in which there were no males of any stripe, unless they were babies or the loutish teenage sons of the female owners who walked through purely to rifle the cash register. Girls need sanctums. I was fascinated with the beauty shop because I was invisible there, privy to conversations not usually conducted in my hearing. Lulled by the sounds of the machines, I feasted on trash magazines my mother would never have allowed me to peruse. All around me, women were submitting, being serviced and done to. They engaged in truly archetypal gossip, touching on their own deepest fears and desires, trotting out other people's stories as parable and warning. Later, they got washed. Quiet now, they lay back in their chairs, heads swallowed up by the deep, slotted sinks. I noticed how their legs fell slightly apart, their hands relaxed. Uniformed girls massaged their scalps with careless efficiency, and the women closed their eyes. Their faces took on a somnolent wistfulness that almost scared me, and I looked away. I'd witnessed attitudes of such surrender only at the movies and love scenes between men and women, and those, of course, weren't real. Women went to the beauty shop to be with other women, to engage in private rituals that supposedly had to do with men, yet the men were wholly absent. Nowhere in the talk could I detect the dark pulse of promise sex had already acquired for me, a pilgrim at the gates. Women at the beauty shop didn't talk about sex or refer to their own hopes or traumas. They did talk about instances of seduction, other women who had strayed, but it was always wholly the woman's story, as though the man and the smell and feel of him were incidental. There were stories of triumph. She finally told him to hit the road. Or, I looked him right in the eye and said, there are laws to protect me from men like you. Women who came weekly to this shop ranged in age into their 80s, but my mother and her friends must have been in their late 30s. Far younger than I am now. They'd been parents for close to 15 or 20 years and were veterans of what seemed generations of marriage. They referred often to their grandmothers, who seemed to have known one another too. The beauty of the beginning is always easiest to appreciate, the start of emotion, the unlined face, the unsullied field of snow. The middle passage, the deepening, the acknowledgement of age, change, banality, and heartbreak, is another matter. These combine to become the atmosphere I remember, the rituals I didn't understand, those Saturday afternoons in the beauty shop. Silent observer, I watched the women who were trimmed and permed and crimped. Were they there to be beautiful, to fail in some dream of themselves? I think they were there to be together. One afternoon a week in their buffeted lives, someone took care of them. Several people from my family are here tonight. I guess some of us migrated to North Carolina. But I want to read just this paragraph from Paradise Lost, West Virginia, for my Aunt Mary Lee, I was very close to her, and she was in assisted living for many years. And I used to talk to her on the phone for like 30, 40 minutes at a time. And she gave me a lot of tidbits about the canon. And she had been my father's sort of like a younger sister to him. She was much younger than he was. And he was always she was always his special girl. He paid so much attention to her. And this was a paragraph in the book that she really liked. So I'm reading it for her. This is a section called Randolph County. The women in my family all had two names, Jocasta Andorra, Margaret Lee, Jessie May, Martha Jane, Mary Price, Maud Ellen, Mary Lee, Amy Jo, Molly Jean. Both branches of the family had immigrated to America before the Revolutionary War. The Phillips family, in receipt of a land grant from the King of England, came from England and Wales to what is now Randolph County in the early 1700s. Eldest sons, including my great-uncle, my father, my brother, were named Randolph. The town that grew up around the farm, originally settled by Germans, was called Womelsdorf, but subsequent Anglo-Saxon settlers changed the name to Colton, C-O-A-L. The family lived there for 200 years as the farm was deeded to generations of sons, then sold and so lost.
There's so much history throughout, and really, really beautiful portraits of both of your parents and the ancestry and the history of the place. And I'm not sure which. You have pieces both of your father and your mother that I hope you're going to read. But I want to say I found the portrait of your mother and her commitment to this place, what we see in the beauty shop, and then what you revealed throughout of her life as a teacher. And just the class differences, and again, your awareness of being the child of someone totally rooted in this place, while you yourself have these aspirations that might take you away. The Jean Shrimpton look and various fascinations of things that were not happening in West Virginia.
Right.
So one of the portraits, maybe the one of your mother.
I might be able to read a little bit from each of them.
Good. I think that's I hope so.
Yeah. So I'll start with a small history. In a forgotten place somewhere in the past, my mother teaches grade school, and many of the kids are brought in on school buses from hollows and hamlets along dirt roads. Our own road is a concrete two-lane that runs past open fields and isolated houses. The house closest to us is a narrow bungalow perched at the crest of a hill. It sits up on blocks, has no foundation. We call it the shed. My mother says it ought to be against the law to rent a house like that to anybody, but people move in and out, where the house is empty whole seasons. My brothers and I ride the bus to school. This year, when I'm in 5th grade, the bus stops at the shed and 2 scrawny boys walk out alone. They climb onto the bus and stand still for a moment in the aisle, looking at the rest of us. They have the ashen complexions that seem to characterize neglected kids from the country, and sores at their lips and ill-fitting clothes. But these boys have their hair slicked back tall, Elvis Presley style, and their features are fine and sharp, like those of little foxes. They take us in with their pale blue eyes, scent the air. The older one, who might be 8, puts his arm around the younger, and they sit down. Soon I'm hearing about the younger one, Nathan, from my mother. He's in her 1st grade class, one of the kids she takes to the lunchroom in the mornings before school even starts. She finds him something to eat, and the cooks look the other way. She takes clothes to school for Nathan, and towels and soap. He often comes to school smelling of urine. She brings his dirty clothes home and washes them and takes them back to school. Somehow Nathan knows who I am, that I'm her daughter, and I see him during the long noon hours on the playground, watching me. My mother tells me Nathan's mother takes off for weeks, riding around in a tour bus with some country singer. I've seen her downtown on Saturdays at the 5 and dime record counter, a woman the size of a little girl, petite, with sharp features and pale eyes like her boys. Her brown hair hangs below her hips. She wears tight gold lame pants, dangling spangled earrings, a short fringed jacket. The kids seem to take care of themselves. Nathan has an accident in class, and my mother takes him to the teacher's restroom to help him change his clothes. She's preoccupied, having left the inexperienced student teacher in charge. She fills the sink with warm soapy water and hands him a washcloth. Then she actually looks at him. She's seen marks on him before, but today there's no mistaking the long bands of discolored bruises across his back and hips and legs. She asks him what happened, and he doesn't make up a story about falling off a fence. He tells her in his soft, flat voice that his daddy beat him with a board. My mother takes him back to class, then calls the county child welfare office. She tells them that she's not sending him back to that house. Either they find a place for him or she'll take him home with her. In fact, Nathan does come home with us to my mother's, in my mother's car. We share our chocolate milk and graham crackers with him while my mother makes more phone calls. She convinces a kindly older couple, Hank and Christine, friends of my father's, to take him. They sign themselves up to be approved as foster parents, and child welfare comes to interview them that afternoon. Hank and Christine come for supper, as though we're one big family. Then they take Nathan home with them to their spare room, to a new teddy bear and a coverlet printed with trucks and clouds. At school, at recess, he stands with his brother on the playground. Nearly every day he brings his brother over to me, the two of them with their hands in their pockets. I wonder if the brother is angry because Nathan was taken away, but he doesn't seem angry. He seems eager to talk, as though he wants to make a good impression. I think about the first time I saw him on the school bus, the look on his face and his arm around Nathan. He had someone to protect. Now he's not sure. The bell rings and the playground begins to empty. The boys go off in different directions. Nathan's brother hesitates, shuffling his feet. The look he gives me over his shoulder is one of such grudging hope and uncertainty that I feel angry at my mother. Why hasn't she rescued him too? Rescued all the kids like him, who after all only have each other. I'll stop.
That's one of my favorites. It's so beautiful, and you have that great quote it's right in the front of the book, but in an early piece. The painful thing about adolescence is that everything seems absolute, and the painful thing about adulthood is that nothing does. And that quote really does drive all of these pieces together. And I'm wondering about, did you have surprises along the way, things that you thought of or remembered it in a new way? Or were you aware?
I think when you're writing, especially when you're writing things that come from your past in some way, whether it's directly or indirectly. And this book was a new experience for me because I'd never written a book with the I voice, where I'm actually writing as myself. And from the minute you start the book, you realize it's written by a writer. It's just a writer's story. It's not a normal memoir. It's sort of the story of what I've loved and what I've lost and what I've witnessed and what's meant so much to me. Because there are pieces about other writers, pieces about writing itself, and things that are more pure memoir. And they're all about a time, a certain time that's gone. Hi, Claudia. Hi. Gosh, I'm looking at you and I didn't recognize you. There's so many people I know
is a lot
tonight.
about time, and at one place in here, you talk about how time, just the concept of time, may be the greatest driving force of you as a writer. You know. And
Yeah,
so
the idea of saving something between covers in words that otherwise would be forgotten or lost. And that's true when you're writing fiction as well, because you're making up a story that wouldn't exist, or it would be lost if not for your witnessing it. But it's true in a different way in this kind of book.
Yeah, and they are put together, though like a collage. There are beautiful overlaps and connections. You know, even a piece as removed as the assignment for you to go after the school shooting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, which is a really powerful piece, but then it's about people who have lost their children, and then you very easily, you know.
And there are so
carry
many
that
what I call 14-year-old adults in this book, from 200 years ago, from when my mother was in high school and lost her boyfriend, kids who grew up really fast, and that happens now as well. This is a piece called Burning the Trees. I'm just going to start kind of halfway in. Oh, I have to use this. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My mother had been a child in the town herself, an adolescent, a teenager. We knew we'd live in the town always, as she had. We'd graduate from the high school she and my father had attended. The town library was down by the college where she'd earned her teaching degree. Maybe we saw ourselves on the same leafy campus. Our father had attended classes there briefly. This we couldn't fathom. When a great aunt told us he'd won 10 silver dollars in his high school elocution contest, we couldn't believe it. Elocution? What was elocution? Oh yes, he started college, she told us, but he quit and went to work. 1929, she said, as though numbers settled the question, and went on with her sewing. We went on playing. The days were long, hot, luxurious, and timeless. My father was often gone. He worked for Euclid then, buying and selling huge machines that shook the ground when they moved, front loaders with immense shovels and back loaders with blades as broad as cars. My brothers dug roads in the garden, which was not a garden at all, but the lower right corner of our acre of yard gone to weeds. It seemed a huge expanse, tangled and wild. Out by the house, my mother grew flowers, lettuce, and tomatoes in carefully manicured beds, but left us to dig in the garden. My brothers moved all their biggest dump trucks out there for the summer. A fleet of vehicles that seemed kid-sized replicas of what our father sold. The toy trucks were mostly bright yellow. Their beaten-up visages looked snaggled, their beds raised and lowered with cranks. Their tires were big-treaded, double-wide, scaled to size. The trucks bumped over the lumpy ground, loaded down with dirt and stones and clods of earth. I helped dig out the roads with shovels. This was interesting, but what my brothers loved was moving dirt from one end of the garden to the other. They filled the trucks and drove the trucks along, moving beside them on all fours, making engine sounds. The roads grew more and more intricate, curving and looping back, crossing one another. My brothers excavated, filled in, sheared curves, widened turnarounds. Insects buzzed and the days grew hotter and hotter. The garden steamed. My brothers kept at it, oblivious, sweat beads raising itchy welts along their legs and arms. Finally, they dug up a nest that swarmed and hovered like a cloud over the garden for days. The cloud contained itself, whining inaudibly, but the garden was impenetrable. A hard rain would have settled the bees, but it seldom rained. It might not rain for weeks. Perhaps this was why my father dragged the archery set out of the shed. Real bows and arrows someone at work had given him, and a plastic-covered bullseye target 4 feet across, backed with thick, bound straw. He propped the target against the shed and showed my brothers how to use their wrist guards. He drew a line across the grass with lime. Stand here, everyone behind the line. Retrieve your own arrows before the next person shoots. Hit the target or the shed, nothing else. My brothers sneered, perfecting their stances. The older one stood sideways, squinting one eye as he took aim. The younger one faced the target squarely, considering before he raised the bow into position. He was short and his arrows hit low, but he was stronger, like a little bull. He kept shooting and shooting. After supper, they shot some more. My father was working in the yard near the shed. Maybe I called out to my younger brother. Maybe he turned slightly because he heard a dog bark or saw a shape move. His arrow flew wide. Suddenly, my father leaned down and grabbed his ankle. The arrow protruded from his boot. I saw him pull it out and drop to his haunches. I called my mother. She drove the car off the driveway into the yard and backed it down the hill to my father. He was so careful of the grass. It was strange to see the blue and white Mercury sitting in the yard by the shed in the garden. We watched our father wrap his shirt around the wound as the shirt darkened with blood. He lifted himself into the passenger seat and they drove away. My father knew how to grow a lawn. The grass was so thick and green that it sprang back almost immediately, as though the car had never sat there at all. We kids were home alone for the first time. The concrete porch ran the length of the house a foot off the ground. We sat and waited. I shot my father, my younger brother said. I should run away. The older one nodded. I would if I were you, he said. Before they get back. You could take the bread and the apples, I said. But we didn't move. The sounds in the fields and the trees seemed suddenly distinct, separate from one another. Locusts singing, the whir of grasshoppers flying and dropping, the needling singe sound of mosquitoes close to our ears. Lightning bugs appeared above the fields, blinking their tiny lights. The trees at the edge of the yard, 4, 5, 6 of them, held their branches aloft. They were young fruit trees, about the height of a grown man. By now, deep into summer, the limbs were edged with transparence, colonized with nesting insects. In the dark light, they seemed to glow. We walked into the yard to look at them. Up close, the webs swarmed with ravenous pale gold worms, each lifting its blind head. My father returned from the hospital with a bandage on his ankle. Bled like hell, he told us, but I reckon I'll live. Then he reached out to run his palm softly over my brother's buzz-cut head. The curve of his big hand enclosed the shape of my brother's skull lightly, carefully, as though his fingers framed a world. He leaned in close. For a man 7 years old, he said softly, as though in confidence, you've got yourself a powerful arm. My brother smiled, tremulous, then squared his shoulders and nodded his version of our father's familiar affirmative gesture. No words, just the colluding, acknowledging glance, the raised brow, the rueful exhalation midway between a sigh and a laugh. Our father refused to get rid of his boots just because one of them was neatly punctured. He wore the boots a few evenings later when he burned the trees. He performed this ceremony every summer. A bucket of water, a torch made of kerosene-soaked rags. He lit the torch to burn the insects out. The webs would burn quickly before the limbs caught. We kids sat on the edge of the porch and watched the trees light up a patchy code in the gravid dusk. We were told to keep our distance in case the trees themselves burned, but they only flared at intervals along their branches, as though playing host to rolling stars. My father moved around them, managing each blaze. He wore his khaki work clothes and lit the torch with his cigarette lighter. He smoked a cigarette as he did the work. We saw his long form lift the brilliant torch, and in his other hand his cigarette glittered, small and secret, as nests of worms fell from the trees in ashes. In a memory I have now, the brother closest to me whispers, their wings are flying up. At singed leaves laced with sparks scatter drowsily higher. My father bends down to douse the torch, but it's too late. The coronas of the little trees begin to curl and flare. They bloom with leaping fire and open, furling like nova, feeding themselves. We don't call for our mother. She's died before him and left us to show him the way. He walks toward us up the hill of the rolling lawn, his pale clothes glowing against the flames, and we all realize he's been gone for many years.
And that is a beautiful example of that merge of the
Of
past,
time,
of
yeah.
time.
Where you're in the present and then
Really
suddenly you're in the future, and at the same time you're in the future, you're thinking about the past.
Yeah, really beautiful. And just that whole image of the kerosene torches, which, do people still do that?
I've never saw anyone but my father do that.
My grandmother did.
Yeah.
Those worms. Well, I want to be sure that you read another favorite section of mine before other people have questions, and I know there will be some. But back to the relationship with your mother and the great quote when your mother said, "I may be small, but I'm mighty," and just all of these strong women, and I particularly am taken with your fascination with Barbara Stanwyck and the Big Valley. And
You can still find it on TV somewhere.
and this essay provides a wonderful dose of humor.
Yeah.
Very, very smart humor here.
I'm not going to read all of it, but just a little bit. So, Big Valley. Some of us remember an American TV landscape replete with cowboys and westerns. Before psychiatrist-obsessed mafia dons and cop shows that counted hours, before extraterrestrial conspiracies and reality show exhibitionism, cowboys ran the show. On every channel, there were only 4, a turn-of-the-century American West held sway. Week after week, men rode their horses out of endless panoramas into our living rooms. Stirring theme songs suggested an idealized manifest destiny made real. Now we're seeing a resurgence of Westerns, dark American visions in which destiny seems a march toward damnation, and America is just as morally bankrupt as the rest of the world. But back then, in the 50s and 60s, TV dinners were newly invented, and terrorism was unthinkable. A man was a man, and a woman was Linda Evans as Audra Barkley. Blonde and blue-eyed, very slightly spunky, and protected by a pantheon of big brothers. Despite her kittenish good looks, Audra was a pale imitation of her mother, Victoria, played by the incomparable Barbara Stanwyck. Stanwyck's Victoria Barclay was the heart of the show, and the Big Valley still reigns supreme as the first TV Western built around a steely, 50-plus female character. As Victoria, Miss Barbara Stanwyck, as she's respectfully billed in the credits, is, well, fabulous. The Big Valley isn't Stella Dallas, Double Indemnity, or the Lady Eve. Actually, in Stanwyck's film lexicon, the Big Valley might stand alongside The Cattle Queen of Montana, a vastly less celebrated Stanwyck film. But it's fair to say that Stanwyck elevated each one of the 87 films she made at a breakneck pace for 46 years. It's not surprising that Stanwyck emerges unsullied in the Big Valley, the good single mother of all mothers. She's single by necessity, of course, but very much in charge of her territory and her progeny. Ah, the Barclays. For those who never set eyes on the splendor of the valley, let's backtrack. It's 1876. The Barclays, an ultra-functional dynasty, oversee their 30,000 acres in California's San Joaquin Valley. It's a big job. Orchards, vineyards, cattle, mines, and the property in Mexico. Tom Barclay, the family patriarch, died a while back, 6 years back to be exact, leaving his widow, Victoria, to run the ranch. Stockton, California is the nearest town, but it may as well come and go like Brigadoon. Victoria doesn't really have much to do other than deal with the week's crises. She simply is, like God herself. Her savvy, nobody's fool portrayal of a woman so decent she accepts her deceased husband's orphaned love child as her own is, well, rousing and believable, but more on that later. She sweeps down the Barclays, Beauty and the Beast staircase in rustling high-necked satin, or rides her horse side saddle, a little bolero hat perched sideways in her perfectly coiffed white hair. She's good to everyone, particularly the downtrodden, so much so that one suspects she, like Barbara Stanwyck herself, wasn't born with the proverbial silver spoon in her mouth. Let's consider silver spoons. Long before she became Victoria Barclay, Barbara Stanwyck was Ruby Stevens, fifth child born to working-class Brooklyn parents. Ruby's mother died when Ruby was 4 of complications from miscarriage after a drunk knocked her off a moving streetcar. Her father joined a Panama Canal work crew 2 weeks later and deserted the family. Eldest sister Mildred raised the younger children until she got a job as a showgirl. Ruby and siblings then lived in an ever-changing series of foster homes, and Ruby often ran away. She toured with Mildred the summer she was 9 and 10, practicing her sister's routines backstage, and dropped out of school at 14, supporting herself with a series of menial jobs. At 16, she became a chorus girl for the Ziegfeld Follies. The rest is cinematic history. But Victoria Barclay's character seems particularly informed by Barbara Stanwyck's. Frank Capra called her beloved by all directors, actors, crews, and extras in a Hollywood popularity contest. She would win first prize, hands down, because she treated everyone on her film sets, no matter their role, with respectful kindness. In the Big Valley, there's no contest. Victoria Barclay's children call her mother without a trace of irony. They consult her, they sometimes listen to her, they protect her when necessary. When she rescues them, driving hijacked buckboards full of dynamite here and there to save them, they applaud her efforts with good-humored brio. They like their mother. What a concept. As the age of Aquarius dawned in the real world and all hell broke loose, the shell-shocked mothers of teenagers may well have formed a healthy, so to speak, portion of the show's fans. Mothers, take note. Victoria Barclay was nurturing but not clingy, smart but not cold, direct but not didactic, and classy, so classy. No wonder she didn't date. Her dead husband was her only equal on earth, and the thought of replacing him never entered her mind. I mean, the minds of the show's writers. Victoria Barclay was a bit like the Virgin Queen. She belonged to her realm and to her subjects, I mean, her children. The Big Valley debuted on September 11th, 1965, ran for 112 episodes on ABC, and was canceled by the Producer's Choice in May 1969. A culture had changed, and ratings had dropped. Maybe America couldn't watch Victoria Barclay with a straight face anymore. There was so little safety, sanity, and class in our country by 1969. Think Summer of Love, the assassinations, the Manson murders, that humming along with the Big Valley theme song was simply too painful. Victoria Barclay for president, she would have done a better job.
I love the way you read these essays or vignettes, and we get your experience, but they also are so beautifully layered and detailed, the reader can't help but start to pull their own sense of time and memory into the reading. And you have a beautiful piece in here, Outlaw Heart, that's very much about being a reader and the experience of reading. I won't give it away. It's a beauty, very powerful. But you know, I think that the whole time I was reading, I would pause between, because it is like these explosions of times and memories, childhood, home, time. I mean, what else is there, really?
Besides home and time, well, not much.
Movies. And then you throw in the movies, the books. It's there.
Yeah, I think this book, no matter if people did grow up in a small town, it brings back the idea of one's origins and how one grew up. And the more you read, the more you kind of remember of your own background. And that's the way writing itself works. That as you are writing, more comes. It's sort of like I love photographs, and I used to develop photographs when I was in school. I had a darkroom to use, and I loved putting the paper in the pan and watching the image come up slowly, and taking that wet piece of paper out and hanging it up on the line to dry like a piece of clothes. And that's the way writing seems to me too, that it begins to come into focus more and more as you're actually writing.
Definitely. One foot in adolescence and one very much in the adult understanding. Are there questions in the audience? I have no timepiece on me, and I don't want to.
I remember when David shot your dad.
How did you hear about it?
I think we were up for the weekend. But,
And the news traveled to what we called Granny's house.
Yeah. Like a crow fly. I also have memories of Polly, the swing set. Remember hikes to the bus? How steep that hill was to get up to the bus. Abandoned bus up on a hill.
Right, I've told that story several. You were on those hikes too, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, where we lived, it's just been completely devastated now. But at that time, there were 2 fields, and then a creek, and then a hill, and then hills behind that hill. And at the very sort of end of the horizon of hills that you could see was a kind of bald hill that had no trees on it. And at the very top, there was an abandoned school bus. It was a half-size school bus. And at least once a summer, we would pack food and hike to the school bus. And apparently you came along.
Well, a couple times when Dave and I would ride the bikes, get clear there and see how steep that hill was and turn around and come back. But yeah, I was on a
yeah, and it was so amazing to sit inside that bus, which was completely rotted out and And the metal was all rusted, and the seats were on the floor, and animals lived there, you know, in the winter. And we could look out the windows and see for miles around and look back and see our own house. Very tiny. And that was just a beautiful thing.
No wonder you told your brother to take bread and apples. It's a long way.
And we were just all expecting my father, who wasn't known for having an easy temper. We didn't know what to expect when he came home, but he'd realized he'd had time to think. And he was so sweet to my brother, so kind to him.
Yeah, that is a beautiful moment, that description of his hand on your brother's head.
Other questions or thoughts?
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here. You mentioned that this is the first book you've written in the I, and you also described it as a not usual memoir. But I wondered if you could tell us a little bit more about how you came to write in this key at this point, and maybe some of the shifts you had to make in your own writing experience as you wrote.
Well, some of these pieces were written in response to someone asking me. Someone asked me once to write something about a Bible verse. And I ended up writing the piece in which the little girl, you know, the particular Bible verse that happened. So that was a response to that query. And when I began to put the book together, I was amazed at how much kind of echo there was between the pieces, and how much repetition in a way, and how they really connected to each other, because clearly the mind of the writer has a certain shape to it, and we all have our material. And I think it's really was best that I wrote this book now, when I'm the age I am now, because things look very different, you know, as you get older. Well, and the past becomes further away.
I was struck by there is a wonderful essay called Premature Burial, and of course it's, you know, getting lost in the horror film, and yet all I could think is there are so many early deaths
throughout the book, with your parents' generation running all the way through. And I mean, that's not the kind of thing you planned, I assume. And no,
yet,
this is the way that life begins to mirror life. And many times we only see that in literature. You know, it doesn't come out in films in the same way. I mean, we all love films, but I think you really, to travel sort of the way this book travels, it has to be on paper.
And even the pieces about other writers hit similar chords about West Virginia or writing.
And many times the writers that I was most attracted to lived lives that resonated with me because of my past and my experience.
Yes.
Question. So that amazing quote about adolescence and adulthood. What feels differently about you now, like about you as a writer now? What's different in the way you write now as opposed to 30 years ago?
You know, I don't think there is that much difference. You know, I think I've always written in the way that I do. And I started out as a poet, so I'm a very language-oriented writer, and I write with a sense of the rhythm of the sentence and the way a sentence, you know, feels on the page and the weight of the words. And I still compose like a poet, sadly, very slowly. So I don't think it's so much that my writing has changed. I mean, I've sort of moved away. I've certainly written about a lot of things other than my origins. But in this book, I think the origins and other concerns come together in a way that they haven't in a novel.
I just wanted to say, having grown up in Buchanan, that my younger sister Beth has always said that your mother was her very best teacher.
Oh.
And that first grade has always been that year for her. And she admired her so much. So I was so pleased when I read the book that you did just give your mom so much time in the book, because it was a lovely memory.
Yeah, she was the first grade teacher for many years, and she was a first grade teacher like no other. I found some pictures the other day at Halloween, at Thanksgiving. She always used to have the boys make pilgrim hats with buckles of construction paper, and the girls made bonnets. And they also made an Indian village where they would each make teepees and have, like sort of like a tableau on a big table. No other teacher did that kind of thing. And I heard things like, that boy was the smartest kid I ever taught. The most unbelievable kid. You wouldn't think, but she had a sort of particular take on the town because so many kids had passed through her classes. And she actually ended her career as an academic administrator and had everything but her doctorate of her PhD. She had the job she wanted. She became the reading administrator of the remedial reading administrator of the Title I program, which was a federal program. So she advised teachers in all the schools in the county, and she traveled from one to the other. And she loved that work.
Yeah. Two things quickly. One, I did not watch Happy Valley. I watched Ponderosa. And it sounds like Lauren Green and Barbara Stanwyck are the same person, except different genders. Right? Everything else is the same.
Oh, I don't think so. I'm debating.
I don't want to argue.
The Cartwrights did not have a sister.
That's true, but
or a mother. Or a mother.
I mean, there were no women in that show, except the very incidental ones.
The mother was gone in Ponderosa, and the father was gone.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing that was so interesting and so important about that show for me as a kid was that it was a world run by a woman, and in my house it was a world run by a woman. You know what I mean? But that was an unusual situation. And it was way ahead of its time. I don't think there were very many female actresses who, Bewitched was a different kind of thing.
Right.
And she was doing a lot of things that were impossible to do, whereas Barbara Stanwyck was just working with what she had to work with.
Lucy, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
I grew up that time period. And I often say that the way we grew up, our parents would have been arrested for child neglect. Because we would,
maybe yours would have, I don't know.
My
you
brother
went out and
and I
just
would
played,
go out
but,
after breakfast. We would sometimes stop by for lunch. And then my dad would whistle us in for dinner. And my mother had no idea where we were all this time. We were just entertaining ourselves with our friends in the neighborhood.
But it was a different world.
Yeah.
Yes.
Safe then.
You were in your school bus, whatever your school bus was.
Right. Well, we walked to school and we lived a long way away. And then we rode our bikes to school, even in high school. But it was a small town.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, what does West Virginia mean to you now? And do you still think of it as home?
Yeah. I don't have a home place because that farm in Randolph County disappeared. I've known people who still have a home place. But I think of it as my home, not my home now, but the home I came from. And what does it mean to me now? I think that's best answered by this essay called Paradise Lost, West Virginia, which I think I sort of talk in there about how it is a very misunderstood place, and some of the reasons that it became the place it is today. So I'll have you read that in the book. Okay, any other questions? Yeah.
Yes.
It's not a question,
Okay.
but one of the pieces I love the best
and it has to do with going to the, going to the beauty shop. When you come home again, you're more an adult, you've had something bad happen to you, and you just arrived, and what you want to do is have your mother take you for a haircut. And what she has in mind and what you have in mind are very different things.
Right.
And so it makes that nice separation between the early beauty shop and then you in that 60s.
Yeah.
Right.
I need the hair.
Yeah. Yes, I wanted a wild mane.
Yes.
That wasn't what she had in mind. Well, how are we doing on time?
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
I have 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, does anybody have a request of a certain part of the book that they want to hear aloud? Are you gonna ask for something? No.
Oh, no.
I'll ask another.
Okay.
I'll ask a question. So this year I've been reading memoirs. I just decided this is my year to do that.
Oh.
And writing a memoir, the starting point seems to be one of the most interesting things about all the memoirs that I've read so far. That is to say, the starting point for the writer.
Right.
You know, where it comes. Now, you know, people have asked you to do one, for example, the one about the spy in the Bible, the spies in the Bible. Somebody asks you to do that. But that's only one part of it. What is it that makes you think, oh, you know, I've done these things, maybe they belong together?
I knew that they definitely belonged together and that I wanted them to appear together, you know, as a series. And the only change that my editor really made was that she said, you've got to put the piece hometown in the front of the book.
Sure.
Which I did. I thought that was a good suggestion. But
what would you have done otherwise?
well, I think it started originally with the piece in the church. And hometown was just further into the collection. But I think putting it first was a good idea.
I think it was too.
Yeah, we'll give her credit.
It really does set the stage. Do you want to read a little from the beginning of Outlaw Heart?
Oh, okay.
There are a lot of writers in the audience, I know, whether they admit it or not. So this is a good paragraph.
Outlaw Heart. The writing life is a secret life, whether we admit it or not. Writers focus perpetually on the half-seen, and we live in the dim or glorious shadows of partially apprehended shapes. We could bill ourselves as perceptually challenged, given that we live two lives at once, segueing from one to the other with some distress. But we accept, long before we publish, the outlaw's mantle. We occupy a kind of border country, focused on the details that speak to us. Ask those who marry us or those who don't. We're too intensely involved, yet never quite present. Perhaps we're difficult to live with as adults, but often we were precocious, dutiful, overly responsible children. Grown, we remain precocious mostly in what we remember, in the emotional burdens we take on. Many of us were our mother's confidant, that special child with whom hopes and betrayals were discussed. Our mothers were often women who lived alone, in reality or in spirit, women whose passionate beliefs and perceptions knew little outlet but this blood tie, this receptive listener who would take it all to heart. We listened out of love, and because we felt in ourselves a reservoir of longing, we were unfailingly attracted to the secrets of others and to secrets shrouded in the phenomena of the world. We knew too much. In this, we were outlaws. Early on, we were awarded possession of a set of truths, enlisted to protect someone's version. Yet we lived in the context of those stories, and we understood the truth to shift. The truth was agile as a dream. Only language could match its permutations or approach its complexity. So we'll stop there. Thank you so much for coming.